Hey everyone, so I wanted to hop on here, as you guys know, if you've seen my previous video already, but I want to speak on feminism and how it doesn't benefit and it's not for women of color. And I like how this young lady from this subreddit that I'm part of, it's strictly Black and brown individuals and people speaking on their experiences in this life, navigating, unfortunately, this colonized world, right? And I like how she said that she likes labeling feminism, I guess, in her own words, or how she would describe and label it for women of color. And perhaps it's only for Black women in this case, but I like this. I love this, and I want to give her kudos because I actually thought it was even a better word. It shows a mature, where it's womenism. I love how that sounds, where it's like, I'm a grown woman. I'm a grown woman. And perhaps that's not the reason why she selected it, but I was like, womenism. Very nice. I think I've spoken about feminism and how feminism has never been for us, how white women have strategically used that in order to just uphold their own women, for us to fight their fight, a fight that we've never really benefited from. I spoke about Susan B. Anthony as well in my previous video, and I said, yeah, this women wanted to garner more attention, more power, more presence. And what better way to do that, right, than to use Black and brown labor, okay, and voices, right? That's historically the white community has done. So yeah, we're not surprised. So I did want to read something that I came across. It was a response, and hopefully this person doesn't mind. I think it was really spot on, and really depicts what feminism truly is. It's a movement established by white women, for white women, and white women alone. That's me saying what I said. And this is what many Black and brown women have experienced in that stinking movement. And interestingly enough, there was someone that had spoken about being banned from a feminist subreddit because she pointed out how racist many white women. You know what? I've navigated, I feel like the most traumatic experiences I've had with white people has been with white women. Are we surprised or are we not surprised? Yeah. So with that being said, I am surprised that many women of color still buy into this, and it's never been for us. Once again, this also coincides with the message that I put out there. It's pretty lengthy. It's going to, hopefully, it's taking a long time to upload, but you guys should see it. It was a 35-minute message. It's it's about how we as people of color should create our own spaces, because historically, environments and area and spaces, or just places where white people move and white people become the majority, those spaces are very much problematic, or very often, if not all the time, problematic. And even, you know, sometimes when we even welcomed white people into our spaces, or individuals, and this is something I've mentioned before, where like the Black community has been very much so vocal about creating their own spaces, because even within other minority communities, have been a lot of racism and colorism exemplified by these communities. So it's important to have people around you that uplift you, and ensuring that we make our Black and brown spaces and areas where we know that we can be supported is very important. So we should also, and I've mentioned this as well in previous videos, we should also be mindful of our biases, and our even subconscious racism. A lot of what this world has been normalized within even us often. So being mindful of that, and that is why, once again, the Black community has been very intentional about, hey, we want Black spaces, Black places only. Oh, that's great, because who's gonna have your back, right? Susan B. Anthony didn't have the Black women's back, right? evidently. She wasn't the one that, and we've seen this also. I am still amazed by the fact that many POCs voted for Trump. It's like, you should have known. You should have known. But just because you want to let sexism, right, rule, you want to let misogynism rule, you want to let these ideas that are hinged on sometimes religious ideas or perspectives rule, you will do whatever it takes to continue to uphold, whether that be yourself racially, right, your ethnic group, and we also become divisive. Oh, our we have to protect our community, our people only, and then we're not seeing the greater picture, which is the white community, white people, colonizers have impacted not only Black countries, places, community, the Black community has impacted the brown community simultaneously, and continues to do that. So perhaps we should find that similarity and come together and join together. That should have been the case since the get-go, but here we are pandering to this white woman, white man, allowing them with ease to come into our community, allowing them access to our spaces and places very easy. And historically, we've seen that within this very land where Native Americans never had these ideas and thoughts, like, right, they weren't thinking worst case scenario. They weren't thinking, they were like, oh, well, and I can only assume the white community or those of European ancestry had ammunition, had a lot on their side to impose. But it's like, we always walk with so much, kindness and compassion and empathy, and that's great. We should uphold those things in our community, but at the same time, we should be mindful. And I feel like the feminist movement it clearly depicts why we as people of color need our own spaces, need to be very intentional about creating our own spaces, and being wise in what we do and how we select and what we select, right? And same again in regards to I spoke about this with the previous video as well, the 35-minute long video, where it's like many presidents from Black and brown countries have been simply okay with coming into these spaces where the white community and white people will use that opportunity to ridicule, demean you, treat you poorly. And it's like, why are we constantly wanting acceptance? And why are we constantly being okay with being treated, unfairly, unkindly? Yeah, and it's really time to stand on business. So this young lady, regarding feminism, once again, she said that in her experience, white women have only cared about themselves and proximity to power, which is white man, right? And I feel like, honestly, they've been one and the same. They've been one and the same. I do not question that white women have whispered, and there's been historically a lot of false accusations, and we know this about in the past where white women have said, oh, X, Y, and Z, and have like a Black man has done X, Y, and Z during those times where the Black community didn't have any freedom, and lo and behold, they are unalive. So white woman is right behind the white man in terms of like they're walking side by side or right behind, whispering, right? So that's just my that's how I envision it when I see a visual in my mind. It's just like, yes, proximity to power, but they've had the power too. They don't give a, I've said this word before, about anyone outside their race, right? Having human rights because they still want to have privilege, comfort, and power over others. They are willing to betray and abandon themselves to get semblance of a head nod and a fake validation from the white man, which is interesting because I find that, once again, I am a believer that they one and the same. There's always a lot of talk within a lot of forums, a lot of like online, always this like, And I think a comedian once spoke about it. He was white, funny enough. He said white women are saying all this like white man, white this, like blaming their men when they've been the ones that have been just as problematic, if more problematic. So, oh man, and I'm just like, and then the comedian was like, you know what? The comedian had a interesting. Perhaps some of you guys have seen it, but here's the thing. Here's what I see is a group of women know that they've, and then white women more than anything know that they like women. There is misogynism, there is sexism that exists, right? And they've used it to their their benefit. They've used it to their benefit to now say, "Oh man, we weren't on that side. We were always on your side." And it's like, but then at the same time they turn around and we see that happening where they try to silence black and brown women all the time. And then also I noticed this common pattern where a lot of white women are oh yeah, freedom, and when they're talking about freedom, it's funny how they list feminism because it includes them. They also put rights for the queer community. Hey, I'm all about the queer community in terms of, and there's many black and brown, but you know, when they speak about the queer community, they only think about the time, think about themselves. Once again, it has to include them so they can care about it. It has to include them so they can care about it. We know that already. We see ya. So I wanted to say that much, that it's always been very intentional, very calculated with them. And I agree that feminism is not one that uplifts and empowers and upholds black and brown women. Because it's interesting how they so quickly forget that the black and brown community have been oppressed historically, and they could care less. They care only about what they've experienced, what they've undergone, which hasn't even measured up to what the black and brown communities have been murdered. Yes. Killed. Yes. Used. Yes. Abused. Yes. Woo, and they, okay. But don't forget that feminism, feminism should have the right in front of it, white feminism, right? It's white women only benefiting from that.